Good morning.
Good morning. The parshas every week was one is more extraordinary than the other.
Wow.
It gets closer and closer to the region we are in.
Do what?
Each part it gets closer and closer to the region that we are in.
Ah.
They contain such huge stories, such tremendous ideas. It's just staggering how there could be so many huge concepts in one book. Unbelievable. First, the story of Aram. Yitzhak was born. Kedah. Then the birth. The Shidduch, Rivka, Yitzhak. Yaakov and Esav. The eternal struggle between good and evil, holiness and the opposite. But now, this week starts off most extraordinary. Yaakov's dream of Jacob's ladder. Goes to sleep. He has a dream of a ladder from deep in the earth to high in the heavens. And angels going up and coming down. Wow. Where do you find such a thing? Such huge concepts. And now the birth of the Jewish people. Yaakov establishing the Bnei Yisrael. And the struggles between Leah and Rachel. Tremendous themes, tremendous. All right. So we're discussing in detail the 10 spheres that make up the human character. And we've established that these 10 spheres in our character, our spiritual makeup, are rooted in and are a reflection of the spiritual makeup of Hashem. Good morning. Shasha Hasid. Such a Hasid. Shasha Hasid. Okay, today's Tuesday. Haya Atkins is here.
I'm here.
And Hannah Nina
I'm here.
Megieri. Is that pronounce it? Megieri?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Leah. What is Leah's last name? Ferdman? Ferdman? Fierman?
I don't know. Ferdman.
What?
Ferdman. Ferdman.
Ferdman.
Yes.
So there should be an I in here. Ferdman. Okay. Shoshana.
Here.
Malka, where Malka? Not today. Not here yet. Rachel is here. Good for you, Rachel. Mrs. Shapiro. Rachel Chana. Where's Rachel Chana? She was here. And Batya.
Here.
Just by chance, someone was looking at a book of stories and left it on the table in my house. So I opened up, let's see if there's an interesting story for this week's Parsha. And by accident, of course, there is no such thing as an accident. I read a story from last week's Parsha. And I wondered what the story was all about, but it was a Baal Shem Tov story. After I read the story, I realized what it was all about. It's all about how Rivka sent Yaakov to get the brachos. And he was so nervous to go, and rightly so, because you don't play games with people. Never. You can't ever deceive people. You have to be straight with people. And to deceive your own father, let alone the Rebbe. You know, the Rebbe wanted to expand 770. Rebbe could see that very soon 770 was going to be too small.
Wow.
We're going back now 30, 40 years. And he wanted so much, they should buy up the houses on the street behind 770 and they should expand.
Why didn't it happen?
Exactly. Why didn't it happen? And when they made the Lev Evan Apina, when they told the Rebbe everything was set, we're all set to go, and it wasn't all set. It wasn't set to go, and it didn't happen. So you wonder how did people have the nerve to say things to the Rebbe that weren't true? How did Yaakov have the nerve to go and say things to his father, to pretend to be his brother when his father wanted to give his brother the brachos? He was terrified. He says to his mother, he's going to curse me. She says, on me be the curse. And he knew what that meant. That meant that was for real. Heaven forbid. Mommy. Can't let that happen. She said, listen to me and do what I'm telling you. Anyway, so he did. Baruch Hashem saved the history of the world, saved the world. Because if Esav had been received brachos, it would have destroyed the world. But Yitzchak why did Yitzchak want to give Esav a bracha? Because Esav really was from a very, very high source, a higher source even than the soul of Yaakov. But he fell very low. And Yitzchak, with Ruach HaKodesh, knew that he had such a high soul, and he wanted to give him the bracha. Sometimes people say he wanted to give him a bracha because such great people would come from him, like Rabbi Akiva. Without Rabbi Akiva, we don't have Judaism today. He single-handedly made sure that Judaism survived in the times of the Roman persecutions. Nobody was allowed to learn Torah. He ran away with 5 students. He taught them everything he knew. He himself didn't learn any Torah until he was 40 years old. And then he learned with such intensity, he learned everything, and he became the last word. In the debates in the Talmud, Rabbi Akiva's opinion is the tops. And he established that the Torah should never be forgotten in Israel. Who was he from? He's descended from Esau. And Rabbi Meir, where's the Mishnah from? The Mishnah is from Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. Who was Rabbi Yehuda Anasi's teacher? Rabbi Meir. Who was Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir, any Mishnah in the name of Rabbi Meir is authoritative. Who was Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir is from Esau. Tremendous people. Shmai and Avtalion in Pirkei Avos, leaders of the Jewish people in their time, were also converts from the Romans, Roman converts. Onkelos, the translation of the Chumash, which teaches us the basic meaning in so many cases. We don't understand the meanings of the Chumash. uncle teaches us the meanings because he translated it into Aramaic. He was the nephew of the Caesar, the Caesar of Rome. All these people descended from Esau.
Wow.
So that's why Yitzchak wanted to give him a bracha. But it was the wrong thing. Rivka knew this. Anyway, so this is the story. There was a guy who's very poor. He was an arrender, said in the story. That means he had an tavern. How do you make money? People come in and they buy a meal and they buy some beer. And there weren't so many travelers, people didn't travel around that much. It was very hard to make ends meet and to pay the rent. And this guy couldn't pay the rent. For 1 year, 2 years, he couldn't pay the rent. So the landlord was ready to throw him out. He didn't just throw them out. You know what they used to do? They used to throw them in a dungeon. And when they paid the rent, they could come out. And if they didn't pay the rent, they stayed there. So that was terrible. He didn't know what to do. His wife, he was not a chassid. But his wife was a Hasidisha. And she said, listen, there's a big holy rabbi named Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. Why don't you go to him? In Mezhebush, go to him and ask a blessing, and he'll help you out. I don't believe in all this stuff. Wonders and miracles. But she nudged him and nudged him and nudged him until he had no choice. And he went. So the Baal Shem Tov listened to his whole story, how his life is in danger. He doesn't have any money, and he has to pay 2 years' rent. So he says to him, well, listen, go for a walk on Sunday, and you'll meet some Gentile who will sell you something. Just buy it. Don't worry about the price, and don't even think about what it is. Just buy it. And he left, and Hashem should help. And he thought, this guy's crazy. This is nuts. I mean, what would you do if you had serious money problems like that? And you went, and some Makubal in Yerushalayim told you, go for a walk on Sunday, you meet a Gentile, he'll offer you something, to sell you something, buy it. So he told his wife, and his wife said, you sent me to see this guy. It's nonsense. It's so much nonsense. I don't believe in any of this. She said, no, he's a great person. You should listen to him. Came Sunday, she nudged him, go for a walk. He said, go for a walk. What's it going to hurt you? Go for a walk. So he went out, and sure enough, some guy comes over to him, and he says, listen, I've got something here. You want to buy it? Now he's astonished. That's exactly what the Rebbe said was going to happen. He said, yes. He says, well, can you pay me? So he reaches in his pocket. He has 1 coin left, a gold coin. Okay, worth $50, $100. He says, that's perfect. He gives him his last gold coin, and he buys, what is it? It's a big fleece. What's fleece? Is a skin of a sheep skin for $100. He goes home and he says, I don't know what I'm doing, listening to you, and this is all crazy. We're in deep trouble. She said, better go back to the rabbi and tell him what happened. Because, I forgot to tell you, that's what the rabbi said. After you do it, come to see me. I'll tell you what to do. So he goes back very begrudgingly, and he has an interview with the Baal Shem Tov, who tells him that next week is the birthday of the count who owns all the land, owns 50,000 acres of land where your inn is located on it. And all his friends are going to come and bring him birthday presents. You take him this skin of the sheep. He says, Rabbi, they're going to kill me. Just do what I'm telling you. Oh, he's so nervous. He goes to the big house, the mansion, big stone mansion where the palace, where the count lives. And all these fine people in their carriages and their fancy clothes are coming with gifts. And he shows up and the guards see him. And they, Jew boy, what are you doing here? He says, I brought this for the count. What? They grab him and they throw him in jail, just like he was afraid would happen. And they take the sheepskin and they show it to the count and they said, this is what the Jew brought you. And he's very upset. Why would he insult me like this? Making fun of me on my own birthday in front of everybody else? But he's thinking about it, maybe he had a reason. What could it be? He says, give me the skin. He takes it. I want to take a look. I want to see it privately. Take a look at it. He takes a look at it. He looks at it and looks at it and looks at it. As he looks at it, there used to be a program. Somebody gave it to me at one point that they had all these pictures in a book. And you looked at the picture, you couldn't really see anything. But if you stared at it long enough, all of a sudden, all the designs sort of faded into the background and you could see like a three-dimensional picture of some object. It was an optical illusion, a whole book of optical illusions like that. So he's staring at this fleece, that's what it's called. The skin of a sheep is a fleece. And he's staring at it and he's seeing that the later letters are starting to appear and form in the skin of the sheep, in the wool of the sheep, like the woven. And he reads, and the letters spell words, and the words are his name, and his middle name, and his family name, and his date of birth, and his age, and his address. Amazing. What an extraordinary gift. He says, get that guy out of here. And he says, all you people are bringing me gifts. I don't need any of your gifts. Look what this guy brought me. And he's like, he owes me rent. I forgive him his rent. And everybody gives him money and he has enough money for the rest of his life. That's the story. Amazing story. You say, that's called the Baal Shemska Maisa. A story from the Baal Shem Tov that's just full of wonders. So what's the point of the story? What do I learn from the story? I read this, what do I learn from it? And then I realized what the story is about. The story is illustrating in times of the Baal Shem Tov what Rivka did for her son Yaakov. Because this man's wife nurtured him and made him do all these things that brought him great blessing. Even though he was very skeptical about the whole business. It shows us also that tzaddikim operate on a different plane altogether. They have a different understanding and they operate in a different kind of a world. And they bring down their awareness and knowledge to us in order to help us. And we have to have emunah. We have to have belief in tzaddikim. And that's the big thing with the Baal Shem Tov in the earlier generations, before the teaching of Hasidus became the big campaign of Hasidism, to believe in tzaddikim. The Sephardim have no problem with that. The Sephardim believe in tzaddikim, have very strong belief in tzaddikim. And it says in the Tanya, Habakkuk came, the prophet, and he took all the mitzvahs of the Torah and established them on one mitzvah, which was emunah. And what does it mean, emunah? In Hashem, emunah and Hashem, and emunah in tzaddikim is the same thing. You have to understand, girls. If you think you believe in God, you have to believe in tzaddikim. There's not to be skeptical and not to ask questions, but to do what the tzaddik says. Just do what the tzaddik says. Put aside your own thoughts and do what the tzaddik says. Then use your thoughts and your intelligence and your character to do in a good way, to do in the best way, what you're setting out to do. But don't try and figure things out. That's the tzaddik's business. He's getting his orders from on high. So that's a Baal Shemska Maisa, a story with great miracles. The Rebbeim in Lubavitch don't go in for that. You know, they don't go in for that. The Rebbe could do all these things, but he doesn't do it that way. The attitude of Chabad is Hashem takes the trouble to create a physical world. Not that we should ignore it, but we should operate within it and use it to publicize Hashem, to make people aware of God. Whereas the Baal Shemska Maisa is like, there's the physical world, and then there's the Baal Shem Tov's world, which is a completely different kind of world. It's a world of miracles. Whereas the attitude of Chabad is, we don't look for miracles. We understand miracles are happening all the time. Do what the Rebbe says in a natural way, the whole thing is a miracle. You know, like, give you an example. I needed a house for many years. We were living in a small apartment. And it was very hard to imagine buying a house and we didn't have any money. After years like this, one day I'm walking to work with a friend and we're talking about the Rebbe's birthday is coming up. And they always publicize Rebbe's birthday with a big ad in the New York Times, urging people, in those days, the ad used to cost like $12,000. Now it would probably cost $120,000. Because money is not worth, not today what it used to be worth 20 years ago. And we didn't have that money, but you know, some people did raise that money. And we were talking about what should the ad say? We thought, well, the ad should tell everybody about the Mashiach, the imminence of the coming of Mashiach, and should urge them to do mitzvahs from the mitzvah campaigns. But it had to be presented in a nice way. I was talking to my friend about how this should be presented. And then we said goodbye. We both went to work, and someone stops me on the street and says, could you, maybe he gave me a flashcard, put this up in the synagogue for me. Could you do me a favor? I said, sure. I looked at it. It was a house for sale. I said, just a minute. In those days, in order to prevent people from bidding against each other, the community established, it didn't last, established for a short time, a list. If you wanted to buy a house, you had to put your name on the list so that nobody else could buy that house until you bought it. So that the price wouldn't go up and up and up. People bid against one another. Each one wanted the house so badly. So I went in, I made a phone call and put my name on the list for this particular house. Didn't even see the house. But anyway, I ended up buying it. How did that happen? For years and years, I needed a house. And this guy walks over to me in the street and says, here, we're good. Okay. How did that happen? If I would think that that was just a coincidence, then my friends would tell me that I should go to a psychiatrist. Because there's no such thing as a coincidence. This is the Rebbe's bracha, only the Rebbe didn't tell me just, that's how things happen. Or how about this one? I met a young man, I used to give a class in Roslyn in Long Island. And so I was introduced to a young man at this class who was the son of a person who came. And he was at that time meditating in an ashram in northern New York, in the mountains, New York, which I didn't know what an ashram is all about, but I had a feeling it's probably an idol worship, some kind of idol worship involved. There was a guy at the Kinnis this year who was talking about it, that all these meditation places, they really are based in idol worship, and they get they sacrifice the children. They offer the children who come to do meditation to the God, and they don't reveal it to them. They don't reveal to them what they're actually doing. It was a whole long explanation, and how he fights against them to get them outlawed. And how I'm digressing there. So he was in this ashram, and I met him, and it was set up that I should meet him, and I invited him for Shavuos. He spent Shavuos at our house, and then he went back to the ashram. Several months later, I went to the oihel. I was asking blessings for a yard site, one of my parents, and I left the oil, and then I turned back, and they told me, you don't go in twice. I went back in twice, a second time, and I didn't write down I just spoke to the Rebbe. I said, Rebbe, that young man, and I tried hard to remember his name and his mother's name, he's still in that ashram. He needs to get out of there. Please give him a bracha, he should get out of there. And I walked out, and I left, and I drove home. And this was like at this time of year, so it got dark very early. When I got back to New York, to Brooklyn, to Crown Heights, it was dark. I came into the office, nobody was left in the office, and the phone rang. I picked up the phone. Who was on the phone?
The guy.
The guy. Hi, I just happened to come into New York, and I thought maybe we could get together. I said, sure. I'd like to buy some Jewish books. I said, come, we'll meet you in half an hour. Came, we went to the bookstore. I bought him a Tanya.
Wow.
We sat down, we went Tanya together, and then we met Rabbi Lipsker, Avremel Lipsker, a great teacher, famous teacher. And he sized him up in 2 seconds. He knew exactly where he was coming from. I mean, he says, you want to hear a story? I'll tell you a story. Once was a young man, he was looking for truth. He was wandering and wandering, got lost, and he saw a house in the forest, a light in the forest. He went towards this house, and he went in, he saw candles, all over the place, candles. And he's just looking at all these candles. Some of them full of oil, some of them not so full of oil, some of them almost with no oil, all burning. And as he's staring at these candles, wondering what it's all about, an elderly man approaches him and says, hello, welcome. You're wondering what these candles are about? Every candle is for a person. It's a life candle. You've heard of a yard site candle? This is a life candle. When the candle's out, the life is over. Would you like to see your candle? He says, all right. And he takes him, and he shows him his candle, and he looks at it. Malka, he shows him his candle. And there's not much oil left. There's almost no oil left in it.
So he pours oil.
Oy vey. And there's a candle beside it with a lot of oil. He has a lot of oil in his candle, and mine is almost out. Puts it back. He thinks he has a lot of oil in it, but he won't miss it. For me, it's my life. And so he takes it, and he's about to pour some oil from this candle into this candle, and the old man appears and says, young man, I thought you were looking for the truth. That was the story that Rabbi Lipsker told this young man from the ashram. Was that a coincidence? Was it possible for me to forget that I had spoken to the Rebbe and said, Rebbe, this young man needs a salvation. And the first person that spoke to me afterwards was that young man saying, hi, I'm here, talk to me. So you see, that's the way miracles happen in the way of times the Baal Shem Tov. The people had to suspend their disbelief. The young man had to force himself in the story to listen to his wife because it didn't make any sense. Whereas in this, where the Rebbe does things, everything makes sense. It's like, says Tzaddikim are like they're like Hashem. Because Hashem is like that too. Hashem does things in such a way that you could think that Hashem wasn't doing it. You think it's just natural. It's just nature. But we know the truth. So always remember the truth. Okay. Now, back to chapter 3. So intellect, we said, is the das, and the midas are the 7 days of creation, which are basically love of Hashem. Of these 7 midas, the first one that influences all of them is love of Hashem. And the other one is fear, restraint. And all the other midas are an expression of my love of Hashem, or the restraints and guidelines that I have to impose on my love. Okay, we'll discuss this more and more as we go through the year. And the midas are called the generations of Chabad. Because Chabad is called mothers, because mothers have children, and the children are the midas. Page 69. Now the explanation of this is, now we come up with a new concept that you know that you have. We've learned that every person has a neshama, which is a part of God. Neshama, you also have character aspects which come from God. What's the connection? The connection between them is your intellect. The word for intellect in English, in Hebrew, is seichel. Those who speak Hebrew, you know what that word means, seichel. Seichel's brains. What is the seichel? Who is the seichel? If your brain is a computer, who's operating the computer? No, you're operating the computer. Which part of you is your seichel? So you have a soul. A part of your soul is called the intellectual soul. So it's your soul that's operating the computer. But which part of your soul is it? Chochmah, Bina, Das. It's a seichel. It's the intellect. And the intellect sometimes is called by its own soul the nefesh hasichlis, the soul which is the seichel. And that's how the seichel, the brains, the neshama connects to you through the intellectual soul. So here we go, page 69. Haseichel, the intellect of the person, which is in the intellectual power of the soul, this is the power in your brain that comes up with all your ideas and thinks about ideas and develops ideas. So it contains Chochmah Bina Das. Now the essence of this Seichel is Chochmah. The start, the first thing, like we said all along, the first thing, the highest power of your soul is called Chochmah. And the word Chochmah means wisdom. The translation of Chochmah is wisdom. And it stands for inspiration, meaning the place where ideas come from. That idea just pops into your head. Like, for instance, that story I told you when I was at the Ohio, and I suddenly thought about this young man in the ashram, popped into my head to ask the Rebbe a bracha for him. What made that pop into my head? What made it pop into my head? It was my seichel. It was something communicated with my seichel. Was it the young man himself that he'd come into town and he wanted to meet me and that made me think about him? Or even better suggestion, was it the Rebbe? That the Rebbe knew that I had made contact with this man, with this young man, and something had to be done about it. So therefore, you had to ring the bell. You know, you come to the door and you don't ring the bell, nobody answers the door. So there I was at the door, and the Rebbe was said to me, so to speak, why don't you ring the bell? So I said, okay. And I went back and I said, Rebbe, this young man needs to get out of where he needs a salvation. So that opened the door, and he got the message, and he gives me a call 20 minutes later, because that's how long it took me to get to a telephone. We didn't have cell phones in those days. What's the end of the story? He just moved with his family of 7 children to Kingston. He's a successful lawyer, deeply learned. He spent 5 years in yeshiva. And he's a pillar of the community. Everybody looks up to him.